Well, guys, I thought I hit record, ended up hitting play on Freebird, and I just sent it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get in on this stage of the process. I'm making a stovetop cover for my wife. Hopefully, some of the marketing I do with it will gain some traction. But I was supposed to make it out of a 1x6, and whenever I was about to cut this down, I realized this is a 1x8. It's not 5.5 inches. It's 7 5/16. Home Depot, you might have screwed up. But I'm not complaining because we're going to rip it down to 5.5 inches on the table saw because I already got everything cut to length, and I just need it to the right width. I'm going to go ahead and cut it down on the table saw, and I'm going to use those strips that I get for possibly the siding, the back. We'll see what happens. Have a good idea of what I want to do for the handles. I don't want to do just normal drawer handles for it. Everybody does that. It's stupid. If you're going to make something, put your own twist on it. Make it one of a kind. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get recorded on the table saw process. So I'd already set my fence to width. One thing to keep in mind when using the table saw, I don't know how well you can see it, but I have my saw blade. Always see people with their saw blade sticking way up above their piece, and really you need it to be about 1/8 or so. Get that full tooth sticking up above it at the highest peak. That way you have less risk of kickback, and if there is kickback, it's not pulling your hand into a full saw blade. It's only going to nick it. Trust me on this one. My fingertips were not too happy with me. But we're going to go ahead and rip these last 4 boards down. The last 3 for the main body, and then the 2 for the... Okay, so we got the main body cut. This part, I'm doing this as a backup. This is what was left over. We cut it down to 22 inches. Again, it's supposed to be 5.5. But we were supposed to rip that down in half. But so what I'm wanting to do is make it a 1/8 inch longer. That way, whenever I do cut in the middle of that 5.5, I'll have 2 1/4 exactly on each side. The reason I'm doing that extra 1/8 inch, making it 5 5/8, is because the curve for the saw blade is roughly 1/8 of an inch, depending on the wear. Some probably are bigger, but that's one thing you got to keep in mind whenever you're trying to get precision cuts. Some people will just lay out and then they'll make their cuts and wonder why they came up short. That is why. It's because of the saw blade is 1/8 of an inch, and it takes about that much of material off. Now this board is right at 5 5/8. So we're going to go ahead and set our fence to 2 1/2. It'd be a lot easier if I had one of those fancy dancy table saws that all the YouTubers have, but I'm what they call a puller. So Maybe one day when I have YouTube money, I can have YouTube table saws. I said that for 2.5, didn't I? Hold up. Never said I was good at math, but what I do know is I set this thing wrong. It's supposed to be 2 3/4. If you caught it, leave a comment and let me know if you caught it before I did, because I almost screwed up. I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference because I have a different idea in mind for how I'm going to do this, but this is just a backup. So now that we're at 2 3/4, when I cut it, it should be right at the same. Safety glasses and earring protection back on. And let her rip, tater chips. I moved the table saw so I could add my table back, and this is honestly one of the most satisfying parts for me. All right, we got the shop help in the back. This is pretty much the layout, the most common design you see of these things. Just a couple boards, 2 on each end, and a dumbass drawer handle on each side because everybody has to copy everything. But I don't like this design very much. What I'm thinking about doing is taking some of these strips from that 2x8 that we ripped down, like so, and inside here, carving out a handle, like a little curve for somebody to pick up, rounding it out so nobody gets a splinter. That's what I'm going to try to do first. Actually, it would be like this. I'll have to cut one of these down to get it to the right length. That way they can just pick it up, move it, put it back, bring out the food. We're also going to put a design here in the center. This is for my wife, so we're going to use our last initial. We'll do that on the CNC machine. I hope this thing fits. I might have to make some adjustments to the bed, but we'll go ahead and get started on that. All right, so I decided the way I'm going to joint these is a 45-degree miter on both sides, and on the ends I'm just going to lop them off to length. They're going to be pinned down. Let's see if I can get it. They're going to be pinned down, but right here in the center, I want it to have that concaved handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark, after I have everything tied, I'm going to mark right here where I want that hand grip, and we're going to cut that out. And then after that, we're going to glue them down, use some brad nails, and that should hold it. Then we'll put it on the CNC and engrave that. That'll probably be in the morning. All right, so I've been thinking about how I wanted to joint these things. I could be one of those jackasses that just do a normal butt joint and put a screw in it, but that doesn't look good. That's not what I'm going for. I'm wanting to put a good twist on it. I want it to be mine. Somebody look at it and say, ooh, I want that. These things are the same length as our base. So I'm going to take one of them. I'm going to do a half flap, a little half flap joint, but I'm going to do a twist. One's going to be up here and one's going to be down here. That way, it's like a interlocking, like one of those, how you fold boxes almost. But to do that, this thing is 1 5/8 inches wide. So you want to take your square and set it to half of that. 1 5/8 inches is 1.625. Set it to 13/16. We're going to mark halfway down in the center. And then we're going to take the board that we're going to be using to butt against it, and we're going to mark its thickness. We're going to make sure it's flush down here. I don't know if y'all can see that. Flush right here. And we're just going to scribe a line on the outside. We're going to do that on both sides, but again, we're putting our own twist on this thing because we're not trying to copy somebody else's hard work. They've thought this thing through and designed it. Yes, we're taking their design a little bit, but we're adding our own twist, and that's what every artist does. Every good woodworker does is make it their own. If you're not making it your own, then you're screwing up, because nobody wants to buy something that's exactly the same. And all we're doing is marking out the size that we're going to cut. And we're just going to use the hand saw. I'm probably not going to record it because it takes a little bit. I could do it on the table saw, but I don't have a table saw sled anymore. It kind of got yeeted on accident. So we're going to cut these two out, and then we're going to transfer these joints over to the connecting boards. So at this point, I don't even know if this is going to work. My idea was to make this a radius. What you saw me doing was I took a scrap piece of a panel that I cut out some round signs out of it, because it had left this radius. I was going to attach it to our side, raise it up a little bit. I did want to do it flush, but it was going to leave too little of a gap to get your fingers. So I'm probably going to raise it up to where you can fit a couple of fingers up under there, but I don't want to raise it up too much and leave a very thin strip on top that could possibly break, especially when we go to round these things over, so it doesn't give anybody splinters or anything like that. So luckily I do have one extra piece, one more strip like this, and it should work. If we get this one cut out perfect with the flush trim on the router table, we'll attach the second one to it and do the exact same thing that we did, so they'll be identical. So hopefully this will work. So all I did was I made some lines to where I can line this up on the edges, and before I attach it, I'm going to use some brad nails to attach it. I'm going to try marking this thing out, and that should be perfect. That'll leave probably 1/2 inch. So I think I'm going to keep it right there. I'm going to use the a new little brad nailer I got. Because it will leave small holes in the board. That way we can cover that up with some sawdust and wood glue, stain. I think I already screwed up. It's not lining up with the lines. We'll double check the layout. Make sure it's centered. Because we want it centered with this board, or these 10 boards right here. And that's going to be perfect. That's going to be perfect. And I'm going to, on the bottom, I'm going to attach another strip just to keep them, like, give it more security, like make it more stable, and it'll lift it up off of the stove itself. So we won't have to worry about this little bit right here not being attached. I am going to glue these. You don't have to, but I want it to be as strong as possible. So now we're just going to attach this to the, or we're going to bring this over to the router table, put the flush trim bit in, and hog all of this out, and use that router bearing to keep this curve. In plans, I'm going to use the bandsaw to rough most of this out, then we'll smooth it out on the sander and round everything over. Can't get the router table to lift any higher. Alright, so I'm super happy with how this turned out. I haven't rounded it over. I was going to wait to do that after I get the next one done. But as you can see, once it's butted up in line, it's got that middle right there. And that is perfect to be able to get your hand under. I'm super happy with how it turned out. I'm sure whenever I round it over on the inside, it'll get rid of some of those saw marks. If not, I'll just hit it with a sander again. But next, we'll just attach the next one to it and do the same process. And we'll see when we have both of these done. Now might also be a good time to point out that these two ends are mirrors of each other. So this end, obviously the bevel's going this way. If you're following along, this piece, that end, needs to be attached where it looks just like this, as a little V. If not, you just attach it, you're going to have two for this side, and when you flip it over, it's going to be upside down. So, which, I mean, I guess that could be cool if you wanted to do something like this and then add something right here as a handle. That could work as well. I might try that at a later date. But right now we're going to mirror these. Attach them with a brad nail again, because as you can tell, it barely left a hole, and that can easily be covered up with sanding, some glue, and sawdust. Probably going to burn these sides as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. All that work just to screw up. You can see it turned out pretty good until I got the miter with that roundover bit and it screwed that miter up. There is no way that's going to look good or professional. So I'm probably going to make another one. Kind of sucks because I was happy with how these turned out until that happened. But I'm going to use this one, the messed up one, as a guide so I don't ruin this one. Shouldn't take me too long. But stuff like that happens. You get that on them big jobs. Alright, I now got them both right. The only issue I've found is I might have cut this too small because there is a little bit of overhang, which is fine. I can clean that up with the table saw or the miter saw. But now we got our handles. They're mirrored. They're in the exact spot I want them to be in. And now we can get into the finishing touches of this, which is going to be cutting the extra length off, securing the boards together, and putting it on the CNC, doing our engraving and finishing this. Alright, so we got it on the CNC. I decided I'm not going to stain it. I'm just going to leave it how it is because I like it. I'm going to put a clear coat on it after we're done. But we're going to engrave our last name dead center. Remember, this thing's 30 inches by 22 inches. So center of that is going to be 15 and 11. So we're going to go ahead and we already brought it to our 0. We're about to touch off and engrave it. We're going to go in about 50 thou or 0.05. If you don't have a CNC machine, don't worry. I've seen people do this with paint, some kind of Cricut thing, or freehand route this stuff, and it works out fine. You don't even need to personalize it. I'm just doing it because it's my wife and I want to make her happy. So we're going to do our last name. Hopefully this works out great. Those handles that we made work perfectly because I'm able to put a clamp in each one and that's going to hold it. So what we're going to go ahead and do is move this over 2 and 2.
And we also have the shop helper here. That's me.
Yeah, the kids helping. All right, buddy. Come on over here.
Okay.
We're using a 90-degree V-bit from Harbor Freight. Everybody wants to hate on Harbor Freight tools, but it works. It's what I've always engraved with, except for one time I used a 60-degree V-bit that came with the machine. That turned out great, but this works perfect for how cheap it is. You don't have to spend $20, $30 for one bit. All right, so go ahead and hit carve. Carve, click it. Scroll down. Yep. Material secure. That's the bit. All right, probe. No. You're in position, right? We already got it hooked up, okay? So we're in position. We brought it over where we're going to touch off at.
Clip is attached.
So now clip is attached. All right, touch plate is in place. Hold on. Okay, yeah, never mind. If you're confused of what this is doing, this is telling the machine where the material is in relation to the bit. So it touches it. Now it knows exactly where it's at. Kid just kicked the tripod. All right. Hold up, buddy. No, let me pull that out. Put it up. Hold on. No, you don't. Because we gotta move it back. So we gotta move this up to where it'll clear the fence. Bring it back 2 inches, bring it back over 2 inches. All right. Is the Z probe put away, buddy?
Yeah.
Click it. Set XY0. Skip.
Yeah.
All right, everybody safety glasses on. Carve it. All right, that turned out great. I really like how the waving or the grain in this pine has that like ripple effect after we cut it. It gives it a little 3D cut. But I might go ahead and stain this and rerun that program just so it cleans it up. I really like that look. So we're probably going to put a light stain over it and then re-engrave it. All right, I did something I thought I wasn't going to ever do, which is stain something while it's still on the CNC machine. But you can now tell the outline of the last name, and I really like it, but I'm still going to wait for a little bit. I'm probably going to put the fan on there, wait about 30-45 minutes, give it some time to dry, because I put a very light coat of stain on here. And after it dries, I'm going to go ahead and recut this and then put the stain. That way it has that white to dark contrast, which is my favorite type of contrast on here. It is, I've done this style on a lot of my signs that I do, and everybody seems to love it, that white to dark contrast with the letters being engraved into the stain. I should have done that to begin with. So hopefully this doesn't take forever to dry, and then after I'm done with it, we're going to take it off, stain the rest of it, and then put the clear coat. This thing's pretty much done. I mean, I could probably take this off and just finish staining the back and put the clear coat on, and we'd be good to go, but I want to be extra. All right, good news. I don't have to recarve this, because Mrs. Taylor, my wife, who I'm making this for, said she absolutely loves it the way it is, doesn't want the white dark contrast, so we're going to leave it how it is. I'll show y'all how it looks right now. All we have to do is stain the back and the sides of it and put a clear coat on it, and it's going to be ready. Now, if you want one stained and then carved, you can always hit me up and we can work something out. Do it however the customer wants, but this is how we're going to do it for this one. That is absolutely beautiful. Never mind the machine, I had it set exactly to cut that again, but we're not. So I'll show y'all the finishing touches here in a minute. I know that was a little bit unorthodox, having somebody else hold my camera for me, but my wife had came out and wanted to see how I was doing. I'd been out here while the stain was drying, reorganizing my shop, putting shelves in and everything else. So she was just checking on me, make sure I was okay, and saw it and absolutely loved it. She did not want me to change it one bit. I was going to go in and engrave or re-engrave everything, give it that contrast. She absolutely loved it the way it was. That's a big thing that I don't see other people doing, is checking with their customers, hey, would you rather this, because you might think it's cool. They don't get to see the step-by-step process, and right now we're at the finishing touches. It's okay for them to see a little bit of a preview. Now, she didn't want me to go in and engrave and give it that contrast. It still does have a contrast, the darker versus lighter, because the stain seeped down into the engraving, as you can see here. But what we are going to do is go ahead and finish staining the entire project, because you don't want to leave it half-assed. But we're going to finish staining it. We're going to put a clear coat on it and give it that extra protection. And we're going to flip it over and put those supports I was talking about at the beginning of the video, somewhere around in there, to give it that extra rigidity. That way, if somebody puts a big freaking pot or something on there, it's not just going to crumple away. That wood glue should hold. I've never had a problem with that Type Bond 3 or the Gorilla Glue that I use for cutting boards or projects like this, but this one I know is for a fact waterproof, and it holds. I didn't put a whole lot because of squeeze out issues, but it's still going to hold where those points of contacts were. But just to make sure, we're going to put some supports at the bottom and brad nail them in just for that extra rigidity. But yeah, double check with your customers. If you're selling on Facebook Marketplace, that's the primary spot I sell other than word of mouth. I don't sell on Etsy because the shipping looks like a freaking nightmare. And I'm not planning on doing that. I might here in the future if I can ever figure it out. But I graduated from George County High School. We're not very that smart. See what I mean? I just messed up my English. So we're going to go ahead and stain the rest of it, same where the clamps were that were holding in on the CNC. And then we're going to put the clear coat on. This thing will be done. But if you want one of these, message me and we'll work out the details and the pricing and all that. All right, so I accidentally started streaming on TikTok. That's fine, that's whatever. If you're ever staining a piece of wood, you find yourself refurbishing some furniture. I've done this on furniture and resold it. Or doing a project, always stain, like wipe the stain with the grain of wood. If you go against the grain of wood, such as this, you're going to run into issues. So if you do it with the grain, it's going to cause a lot less problems when it comes to cleaning the residue off, or just normal stain, the whole staining process. Sometimes you might see me going like this, but I always end up finishing with going with the grain of wood, because that is what you need to do. If you hear kids in the background screaming, that's my kids. I have the house window open so I can hear if there's an issue, if they're fighting or something. So normally what I'll do after I stain it is take a clean rag. You don't have to use fancy brushes. We're just doing a light coat because we want it to dry soon. And just wipe up all that extra residue. And we're also wanting to get these edges and the sides. And if you have to get any more stain, that's fine. But you don't want to like heavily coat it on if you're not going for that kind of look. You want to make sure that everything is clean. I still have to clean up this edge. I tried using the trim bit with the router off camera. That did not work. But we got that edge. I'm going to go ahead and get this side. And you'll have some dribble. Just make sure you clean that up, because any drops will cause it to be darker in some spots. And you don't want that. You want a nice, even, clean stain. That's why you always go with the grain. Now on the edges, the grain's running this way. So that's the way you're wanting to go on those side panels, those handles. You're wanting to go with the grain. The edges of the wood, those are a little bit harder because those are more spongy than the rest of it. But if you just go back and forth a little bit and you're not squeezing out stain, you're just making sure that it's colored, then it should be fine. Now the one thing that we forgot to do is the spots where the clamps were on the CNC, because I for some reason stained this on the CNC because I thought it would be a good idea, and we did not do the front and back where the front is where people are going to see. But those edges, if they're the edges that you used on the table saw, those should be pretty freaking smooth and not an issue to stain, because the rag or brush or whatever you're using should just run with it. And again, we just want to clean up any dots, any spots, any drips that we might have, any residue, and we do not need to leave it face down. We're just going to make sure we wipe this down one more time, and all we have to do is let it dry. We still got to do this side though. But if your rag gets overly saturated or unusable because you accidentally set it down in sawdust like I just did, just get a new rag. I use the rag that I normally wipe with. I mean, a thing of these rags are like $5 at Walmart for a 2-pack, so it should not be that much of an issue to use a few of them. Anytime I'm staining, I usually use 2 or 3. And if any get set in sawdust, then I just use another one. I mean, it's not that big of an expense. Unless you're using 60 rags, then you need to figure out what you're doing wrong. But after that is done, I'll show you all the finished product. All right, everything is dry now, and we can finally use the clear coat. I'm just going to use this Rust-Oleum 2x extra cover, or ultra cover, my bad, gloss clear coat, and I'm gonna start on the inside of it. Just that way, whenever I flip it over and do the back, it is 100% done. And I don't have to worry about it sitting on something that's got to dry. It's real important whenever you use a spray can to not have it too close to the part. I used to spray paint crap as a kid or as a teenager, so I kind of got used to it. Most bridges around my area were not safe. Pretty sure the statute of limitation is kind of worn off by now. You can kind of see where you miss. That looks pretty good. Make sure to get up under the handles. And it should be fine to flip over. Stuff is wet. If you have to put another coat or 2 on there, that's to be expected. I normally use a paint can style finish. I normally don't use these. Make sure to get the sides. And there we go. It's a glossy finish, and it turned out very well. If you've stuck around to the end of the video, I want to say thank you. It means a lot. I put a lot of work into this. It took me a lot longer than I would have liked it to, but it was the first time doing this, and it's for my wife. I value her opinion more than anybody else's. If there's something else you want to see me make in the future, please comment that down below. I'm not going to ask you to like and subscribe. I mean, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But I appreciate you sticking to this point of the video. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next project.